And let me go straight across to Gaurav Sawant, who is still in Kiev, to get the very latest. Gaurav, good to see you safe there in Kiev. Advisory now issued for Kharkiv for Indian citizens to leave at the earliest in about half an hour from now. Is Kharkiv the locus of the conflict, and how easy is it for students to actually get out of Kharkiv? Are they being provided any kind of safe passage by the Russians, or do they have to do this on their own and take their chances?
Unfortunately, they have to do it on their own, and unfortunately, they have to take chances. And this is a battle where actually nobody's giving anybody a safe passage. There is a lull in firing at times. There is a lull in shelling. And it's not just small arms fire. It's heavy missiles that are slamming into Kharkiv. And we've seen images of that, Rajdeep. It's extremely scary, especially for these young children, to make their way out of Kharkiv and Sumy amidst the gunfire. And some of these areas are seeing seesaw battles, pitched battles between the Russians and the Ukrainians. As that lady was mentioning in the broadcast, if the Russians thought that Kharkiv, with a predominantly Russian-speaking population considered very close to Russia since it's in the eastern part of Ukraine, shares a border with Russia, they would actually welcome Russian soldiers with open arms and end up being perhaps another independent republic like Donetsk and Luhansk. That clearly has not happened. It's also very well fortified and defended by the Ukrainian army. That is why these pitched battles. For the Indian students, it's an absolutely nightmarish situation. I've been speaking to some of them and, with their coordinators. Look, Rajdeep, there are no buses available. There are no taxis available. Nobody wants to bring their buses and taxis out when there is shelling and firing on. How do these children get out? Government of India sought an assurance both from Ukraine and Russia that there would be a window provided so that these children maybe could cross over onto the Russian side, which is just about 20-25 kilometers, in some instances 40 kilometers away. That would have been the easiest. Now these children have to take a tougher task, which is between 5 and 7 hours away. Right. When we drove to Kharkiv and there was no firing and shelling on at that time, Rajdeep, we took about 5.5 hours, and I drive really fast on these roads. So we took 5.5 hours getting to Kharkiv and back from there. These children will take much longer if they're able to get a vehicle. There are trains, we are told, but are those trains plying normally? We still do not know on ground here in Kiev, Rajdeep.
So where do these what is the closest border that they will reach now from Kharkiv? Where there was some talk, and I spoke to some students yesterday who thought that they would be better off reaching the Russian border than the Ukrainian border.
So that would have been the best had that window been available. But that window, there was no assurance that came either side. And now that children have been asked to leave, they were given 3 cities, that they would be safe in those 3 cities and towns. They were to get there, and from there try and make their way into Kiev, and then from Kiev to Lviv, and then to the borders. It's very difficult. So Kiev is very peaceful, though it's eerily peaceful at this point of time. There's the army everywhere, there's the police everywhere, there's the militia. They are there everywhere. We drove through Kiev today and almost across Kiev today for several hours. All you see are empty roads, eerie silence, long queues outside, chemist shops and banks and ATMs and nowhere else, and food shops, wherever food shops may be open. And of course, people rushing home because of this, as they say, imminent missile strike. They're anticipating, they're fearing, there's an apprehension that missiles would be incoming later tonight. But the hope is, if children can make it to Kyiv, trains are going and no money is being charged. The government is not charging, the Ukrainian government is charging no money for children to get to, or for anybody to get to border areas, and from there make their way to different countries. But getting here is a battle in itself, Rajdeep.
One final question. Kyiv itself, there has been virtually every day talk that the Russians are planning a major assault on Kyiv. There's that large, 60-kilometer convoy that the Russians are reportedly heading towards Kyiv. Have they made any progress, or has the Russian progress been stalled outside Kyiv?
So we were at a key checkpoint on the outskirts of Kyiv, which is being seen as one of the first lines of defense for Kyiv, where trenches were being dug very hurriedly, Rajdeep, where they also had tanks, they had armored personal carriers, they had anti-tank guided missiles, and they had surface-to-air missiles. So this is the multi-tiered defense system of Kyiv. You have the army on the outskirts, followed by the militia, followed by civil defense, all of them lining up to protect every axis, every road that comes into Kyiv. There is also this apprehension, Rajdeep, that should the Russians get too close and too close for comfort, there are some bridges that have been wired and they would be blown off to prevent the Russian advance into Kyiv. That would mean that the big armor assault cannot come. There would only be airborne troops who will try to come in. So for protection of Kyiv, the people are doing everything that they can. The army is doing everything that they can. And this city actually resembles, what we might have seen in Second World War movies, where you have sandbags everywhere, pickets everywhere, every window, glass window being taped and barricaded, and sandbags being put everywhere. So this is bracing for an imminent Russian attack. Whether that attack happens tonight, tomorrow night, or in the days ahead, we still do not know. And that famous 63-kilometer long convoy still hasn't made it to Kyiv, except that we are told that the Russians are also reassessing their strategy, given the time that that Ukrainians have had, 7 days and counting, to defend themselves, to protect themselves better. When I spoke to one of the militia commanders on ground this evening, Rajdeep, he was telling me they require more Stinger missiles, surface-to-air missiles, and Javelin anti-tank guided missiles. Should they get that equipment and quickly, it will be very difficult for Russia. It's been 7 days. They haven't captured either the second largest city. They're nowhere close to the largest city and the capital. They say that this would probably end up being Russia's Waterloo.